The Nazi Medical Experiments Part 3, The Seawater Experiment. Dr. Hans Eppinger, evil and cowardly physician. In 1973, the West German Falk Foundation created a prize, the Eppinger Prize, that honored Dr. Hans Eppinger, a renowned gastroenterologist who had made important advancement and input to science. Subsequently, it was learned the good doctor had committed ghastly experiments in the concentration camp at Dachau, such as forcing Jewish inmates to drink a seawater concoction that would precipitate and accelerate diarrhea, dehydration, and ultimately death. Levine, 1984. Even though Eppinger never cracked a smile in public and had no sense of humor, he was considered brilliant. His work centered on biochemical analysis, and he thus became the father of functional pathology, or the study of the altered activity of organs under disease conditions. Dr. Hans Eppinger was an Austrian physician who was born in Prague in 1879 and was a pioneer in hepatology and internal medicine. He taught at various universities in Austria and Germany. He was also a Nazi supporter and a participant in cruel medical experiments on prisoners at the Dachau concentration camp, where he tested the effects of seawater on human metabolism. He was the chairman of the German Society of Internal Medicine, DGIM, from 1941. The Eppinger Prize was established by the Falk Foundation, a private organization that supports research and education in gastroenterology. The prize was named after Dr. Hans Eppinger, who was the chairman of the first medical university clinic in Vienna and a pioneer in hepatology. He forced about 90 Jewish inmates to drink only seawater for several weeks, causing them severe suffering and death. He reportedly visited Moscow in 1936 in order to cure Joseph Stalin. This is Stalin's double. When asked who Stalin was, Eppinger could only speculate. A year later, the Romanian queen had him come to cure her. King Boris of Bulgaria and other members of the Ribbentrop family sought Eppinger's counsel. From the victim's perspective, the experiment was detailed in 1947 by Karl Hollenreiner, one of the 40 concentration camp captives moved from Buchenwald to Dachau. I and the other 39 gypsies in our group landed at Dachau around the 1st of August 1944. Throughout these tests, I experienced severe episodes of thirst, illness, and weight loss. Ultimately, I developed a fever and became so weak that I was unable to stand on my own. Most of the gypsies were subjected to liver and spinal cord punctures during the studies. I can attest to the excruciating pain of a liver puncture. Having endured one myself, I still get excruciating agony at the sight of the liver puncture whenever the weather changes. Eppinger committed suicide in 1946, before he could be tried for his crimes at the Nuremberg trials. Dr. Hans Joachim Suering and the euthanasia program. The euthanasia program was a Nazi policy that aimed to kill people who were considered incurably ill, physically or mentally disabled, emotionally distraught, or elderly. The program was initiated by Hitler in 1939 and was officially discontinued in 1941, but killings continued covertly until the end of the war in 1945. The program involved a new bureaucracy of physicians who reviewed forms sent by institutions and decided who should be granted a mercy death. The victims were killed by lethal injections, starvation, or gas chambers. The program killed about 275,000 to 300,000 people in Germany and occupied territories. The euthanasia program was based on the Nazi ideology of racial hygiene and eugenics, which viewed some lives as unworthy of living and a burden to society. The program also aimed to save money and resources for the war effort by eliminating those who were deemed unproductive or useless. The euthanasia program was a precursor to the Holocaust, as it developed the technology and personnel for mass murder by gas. Many of the staff and doctors who participated in the euthanasia program were later transferred to the death camps, where they applied their skills and methods to kill millions of Jewish people and other persecuted groups. The euthanasia program was one of the most horrific and shameful aspects of Nazi history, and it remains a subject of controversy and debate today. There were many physicians involved in the Nazi euthanasia program. Some of them were Karl Brandt I, Hitler's personal physician and the Reich Commissioner for Health and Sanitation. He was one of the main organizers of the euthanasia program and oversaw the killing of thousands of disabled people. He was also involved in human experiments and medical atrocities in concentration camps. He was sentenced to death and executed in 1948. Victor Brack II, a high-ranking SS officer and the chief administrative officer of the Chancellery of the Führer, which directed the euthanasia program. He was responsible for the selection of victims, the transportation of patients, and the construction of gas chambers. He also proposed using Jewish prisoners for sterilization experiments. He was sentenced to death and executed in 1948. Werner Hade III, a psychiatrist and professor who headed the medical section of the euthanasia program. He examined and certified thousands of patients for death and supervised the killing operations in several euthanasia centers. He also trained other doctors to participate in the program. He committed suicide in 1964 while awaiting trial. Hans Heinze III, a pediatrician and director of the Brandenburg-Gordon State Hospital, where he killed hundreds of children by lethal injections or starvation. He also conducted experiments on children with epilepsy, Down syndrome, and other disorders. He was sentenced to life imprisonment in 1948 but was released in 1954 due to ill health. Hans Hohlfelder IV, a nurse who worked at several euthanasia centers, where he administered lethal injections or gas to patients. He also participated in the killing of Jewish children in Poland and Belarus. He was arrested in 1960 and committed suicide in prison. Please like and subscribe.